Hey everybody, Nicholas here, and you are listening to the Hound on the Run podcast. On this week's show, I did an interview with a very special guest who you might know of if you've spent any time in the competition coon hound world or have listened to any of the more popular hound hunting podcasts. This guy gets around a little bit on the digital airwaves. He is a regional sales manager for the Joy Dog Food Company. He's the host of the Fueled by Joy podcast, and he has done quite a lot of winning in the biggest coonhound events across the country. His name is Josh Michaelis, and we'd had a great conversation covering a huge range of topics, all centered around our shared love of hounds. You will not want to miss this one. But before we get into the interview, I'm super excited because we had a listener call in to the Hound on the Run hotline with an excellent question that I think any houndsman can relate to. I certainly can. I am a huge nerd when it comes to dog training, and I love getting into the minutia of all the little details. So if you have any training related questions or anything like that, please give us a call at 971-301-4884. I am not a professional trainer, just as a disclosure, but I am an enthusiast. And if I don't know the answer, I will try to find somebody who does know the answer. So give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. Now on to the question.
I was just wondering, I got a young dog, a young English dog I'm trying to train on coons, and I'm just having a really hard time of getting them to listen to me to come back. I was just wondering if you had any tips. Thanks.
Okay, so again, thank you so much for calling in. I hope I can give you at least some ideas to kind of work through this problem you're running into. So you said that it's a young dog. I'm not sure how young, but I'm just going to go ahead and assume that it's a 1-year-old. Maybe eight months to a year old, similar time, dogs in that age, they're very frustrating to work with because they're learning everything for the first time. So you kind of have to give them the benefit of the doubt, but still, you're talking about recall here, getting your dog to come back when you need them to on your command. I feel like that's one of the most important training skills, and one of the most important skills your dog needs to learn in terms of handling, not only for their safety, if they're heading towards a road, you need to get them back to you. You need to get them away from that road. But also in terms of just being effective while you're out there hunting. A lot of times, I'll let my dogs loose and they'll, sniff around, try to find a track. If it's no real action, I will call them back to me so that I can keep going. If they're not going to come back to me, that's just going to make for a really, really long day. So I can definitely relate to, why this is so frustrating for you. This is a huge topic, and I could probably spend a full hour talking about it because there's just so much involved. But I do have a couple of thoughts on the matter that might help you out and at least give you some ideas for when you're working on recall with your young dog. So my first thought is more of a mindset thing. I think it's really important to keep in mind that even though it's incredibly frustrating that your dog does not come back to you, that dog probably isn't doing it just to piss you off. They're not trying to make you mad, even though they are, and I totally get that. But if that dog has any drive at all, any hunting drive, any prey drive, they are going to want to get out into the woods and sniff around, and they're probably having the time of their life, especially a young dog. They're discovering everything for the first time. Just put yourself in their position. It's understandable why they wouldn't want to come back. There's a lot of great things out in the woods to explore. But still, it's still really important that they do come back to you. Young dogs love freedom, but they're also smart enough that when you want them to come back, it also means that they know that they're probably going to get loaded up and they're probably going to go back home, get in their kennel. So they want to stay partying out in the woods. They don't want to get back in the box. So that's, if you could put yourself in the brain of that dog, they're probably not doing it to piss you off is kind of what I'm getting at. And also, the dog isn't necessarily doing anything wrong that can't be fixed. And you probably also aren't doing anything too wrong. but obviously there's some room for improvement here on both ends. And along those same lines, it's really important that when she does finally come back to you, ideally you would not want to scold her. As frustrating as it is, when they do finally come back to you, dogs live purely in the moment. So if you scold her when she does come back, she will think that you're scolding her for coming back, which is basically the opposite of what you're going for here. And trust me, I have broken this rule many, many times myself. When we're struggling to get your dog to come back to you, you're just pulling your hair out. All you want to do is just, scream at them. But, just kind of take a deep breath and love on them, pet them up once they do finally get to you. And that's kind of the first thing is to keep in mind. When they do make it back to you, you got to praise them up, even if it took them half an hour to get to you. My second thought is that if your dog is super high energy and all fired up about being in the woods, I have found that my dogs listen a whole lot better if I take some steps to sort of tire them out a bit before they get to that point. I don't know if you're hunting on foot or out of a truck, but for me and the way I hunt, I am constantly needing to call my dogs back to the truck, so we can keep covering ground to find a cat track. If I just left it all up to them, we probably wouldn't get anything done. One thing that I started doing that was really a game changer is that when I first get to the woods, wherever I'm going to start hunting, and I get my dogs collared up, I like to run them on the road in front of my truck. We call it roading. I like to road my dogs for, a good 20, 30 minutes if I can. And ideally, I like to get on a nice gravel or dirt road that's going kind of at a nice steady uphill, not too steep, but at a nice uphill road. And if I can run them up, 2-3 miles like that, I find that really burns off a lot of that extra energy, helps them slow down a bit, focus better, and then in return, honor my commands when I need them to come back. So maybe try that. Like, I don't know if you have a nice stretch of gravel or dirt road where you hunt, but if you can, just maybe run her a little while, just kind of burn off a lot of that extra energy. It might not solve the issue completely, but it might kind of help work through it. My third thought here is kind of more of a question for you, and then I have some follow-up, and that is, how did you go about training her to begin with? How did you go about training her recall to start? Did you actually do any training with her, or are you just expecting her to know to come back to you when you call her? We have to teach our dogs the things we want them to do. They don't just automatically know what we want them to do. So that was kind of I had some light bulb moments like that early on. And, it's a lot of work. It's a ton of work to train these dogs to do, to work with us in that way. So yeah, if, call back in, let me know what you've done so far to kind of train that dog to come back to you. In the meantime, I've been planning on making a video or possibly a short series of videos on exactly how I go about training recall for my dogs. Again, I'm not a professional trainer, but I've got a bunch of dogs I've done this with successfully. So, I've found what works, what doesn't work, and I like experimenting with these kind of things. And so I'm just going to kind of walk through my process real quick, and maybe I'll give you some ideas for, what you could do with your dog. So I start training my young dogs to come when called using food. And I do it indoors or in the garage where there are minimal distractions. If you're just trying to train this on the fly out in the woods while you're hunting, you're kind of setting yourself and your dog up for failure because, you're taking them into an extremely stimulating environment, and their nose is, fused to their brain. They can, if their nose is, occupied with a scent and they're super excited about it, it's going to be hard for them to listen. So this kind of process sort of develops like a what's the term? A conditioned response. We're going for a conditioned response. So basically, when they hear that recall command, they're basically going into autopilot and running straight to you. And getting them to that point is the goal, but it does take a lot of work to get there. So I start training my young dogs to come when called using food. And I like to do it, especially when just starting out, I like to do it indoors or in the garage or somewhere with minimal distractions. Some people use treats, like you go buy a bag of liver treats, like, dehydrated liver, that kind of stuff. That's great. But I actually prefer using the dog's actual kibble, their actual daily food. And when time allows, I will feed them their full day's allotment of food all through this sort of training. This is, in the dog training world, they'd call this like positive reinforcement training. So you're reinforcing the behavior you want with the reward of food. The way I do that, just kind of getting into the step by step, I will actually scatter a bunch of food on the ground. There's a handful, just throw it out there. And that's to get the dog to get away from me. So, they're going to go hunt up that food, gobble it up. And then once they've eaten that all and they start looking for more, I will call their name. And when they come to me, I will immediately reward them with a small handful of food. Then basically you have to mix it up depending on what your dog is doing at that point. Some dogs will stay glued to you because they know that you have the food, but others are going to just be like, okay, thanks for the food. And they'll take back off and go look for more food. So if they're that first type of dog where they're glued to you, looking for more food from you, that's when I will scatter some more food on the ground to get them away from me, get them occupied doing something else. And again, just doing the same procedure over and over. Once they've eaten all that food, I call their name, they come to me, I give them some more food. And I just do that over and over and over again. However much food, I just put it in a little bag and I will just hand feed them their daily allotment of food that way. And it takes about, it depends on how fast the dog is really. That'll take me like 20 minutes to do per dog. So, when you have a bunch of dogs, it adds up. But man, doing this kind of stuff at home pays dividends in the woods. One thing that's really important with doing that procedure is staying consistent with how you are calling to them to come to you. I personally just use the dog's name for the recall command, and I pretty much only call them by their real name when I want them to come to me. I have dozens and dozens of nicknames for each of my dogs, and I'm basically just talking gibberish to them most of the time. They have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm one of those crazy people. I like to talk to my dogs. I just can't help it. So, everyone's got nicknames, and that's what I'm, just talking to them most of the time. But when they hear their real name, they know they're supposed to come and find me. So you can use a here, use a come. You can say whatever you want. Doesn't matter to the dog, just as long as you're doing the same thing every single time. Another reason why I like using their name for recall is that when I have all my dogs out, if I only want one or two of them to come back to me, I can just call them by name and they'll come back to me versus, if they're all trained on the same command, the whole pack's going to come running my way. So yeah, I like using names. Everyone, other people might do something different. But the most important thing is staying consistent with how you're calling them. So that's the basic procedure. That gets them tuned in to, they're associating the word with the action of coming when called. Repetition is the main factor here. And we are going for what's known as a conditioned response, where you have essentially programmed the dog to respond to your command more or less on autopilot. I don't fully understand the science behind this, but I believe this sort of training gets into the dog's lizard brain, where the reaction to your command becomes a subconscious behavior. And that definitely does not happen overnight. Now, it's not practical to rely on giving out food rewards to get your dog to come to you all the time. You don't want to be packing around a bag of dog food in the woods when you're hunting. That's just ridiculous. So this is where, you have to get them familiar with the command using food, and then you have to start phasing the food out. And I like to phase the food out as soon as I possibly can. I want the dogs just working for me. I don't want them working for food. Now, this is where tools come into play. So there are a lot of great tools we have as dog trainers at our disposal. My favorite tools for training recall specifically are a long line and a prong collar. So I really like these Hermspringer prong collars. So you've probably seen these before, but basically, it's got these prongs that, go into the dog's neck. It doesn't hurt them at all. You have to make sure they're sized correctly, but basically what this does is it only gets so tight. That's another reason I like these. You can't choke your dog out with these. And the main thing I like about them is that, unlike with a flat collar, when you tug on a prong collar, you basically have directional control over the dog. So when they're wearing a flat collar, if you've noticed, like when you pull back on their flat collar, it actually triggers their opposition reflex. And so you're pulling on the collar and it makes them want to go the opposite way. So they are opposing that force. And that is not helpful when you're trying to get that dog to come to you. So with the prong collars, it gives them a little correction, but also, I feel like it kind of bypasses the opposition reflex because the harder the dog pushes into it, the more uncomfortable it is. And the other factor is that as soon as they stop pulling against it, the pressure and discomfort is immediately released, and it's kind of like its own reward. So, releasing the reward there is that they're escaping the pressure. So that's good. It makes it so the dog has control over, some part of the process. So you got a long line attached to the prong collar. Prong collar's around the dog's neck. Now you have to keep food part of the process to begin with. And what you're going to do is you're going to slowly start phasing that food out, but they still need that reward to understand what you're wanting them to do. And so basically this is my little procedure, that I do for that. So you have the prong collar on the dog, you let them go out and explore. This is when, you would want to be outside, where there's just more stimulation. I like going to, I got some good fields I can go to that have blackberry bushes along the edges. There's going to be little rabbits and stuff hanging out in those bushes. So plenty of stuff for them to get occupied by. So you let them, you got them on the long line, about 30 feet or so. You let them go out and explore, and then you call their name or use the recall command. And if they don't turn and run to you right away, you give them a quick little snap of the prong collar, and then you apply some steady pressure on them until they come to you. So as soon as they are moving towards you all on their own, you got to release the pressure from the collar and then reward them with food right when they get to you. And you just do that over and over again, just like the first process. Once they understand that little procedure, then you can start taking the food away. And what I'll do for that is basically reward them with food every other time. And then you can start making it random. So, maybe it's every third time they get a food reward. Maybe it's every 10th time. And then at some point, they don't need the food. The expectation is they hear the command, they come running to you. Then I'm assuming that you're using a tracking collar. I think most people are these days. So if you have like a Garmin TT15, it has the tone on it. And for me, my dog's main recall command is the tone button. So I've trained my dogs through this exact procedure, that when they hear the tone, they are supposed to come running and finding me. So using the tone, that allows you to recall them when they're way beyond hearing distance. I also find that it's less confusing for them. Like if they're if they're down in a canyon or something, when you call out to them, your voice is going to be echoing all over the place, and they're not going to know which direction to run. My dogs, most of them anyway, when they hear the tone, they're just going to back trail themselves. So they'll just go back the same way they came, and then I can go and cut them off and gather them up that way. So yeah, I love the tone. The tone is amazing. So basically you're going to layer on that the tone as the recall. And so you do that, they're going to have the prong collar on, they're going to have their e-collar on, and then basically what you're going to do is you're going to yell the recall command and hit the tone at the exact same time. And same procedure. You can give them a food reward. You just do that over and over again. Then they will associate the recall with the tone. Dogs are really smart. I found they pick this stuff up really quickly. And then after a while, you can drop the voice command altogether if you want, until where they're just coming back on the tone. So I know that's kind of like a fire hose response. It kind of gave you a lot of information there, but yeah, I hope that helps you. But don't worry if you have to go completely back to ground zero and start from scratch. I really think if you're consistent with how you're going about it and you do a lot of reps, a lot of repetition, that dog's gonna be coming back to you. Try not to get too frustrated. Dogs are very frustrating when they're not coming back to you. So, try to keep a cool head, pet them up when she does come back to you. And I hope this helps. So yeah, thank you so much for calling in, and give us a call back or text me. And yeah, let's keep the conversation going. So thank you. All right. So I am joined by Mr. Josh Michaelis. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Shockingly, Nicholas, yes. You did
Nice.
pronounce that correctly. That never happens.
Really?
So that's good.
All right, we're off to a good start. Cool. So yeah, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yep.
I've actually listened to you on a lot of different podcasts. With Houndsman XP. Are you still doing the truth?
We just wrapped up our last episode of The Truth 2 weeks ago, I think.
Oh, okay.
I know I still contribute when I get a chance. But
Nice.
you understand, everybody's busy, and
Yeah.
I just didn't have time. And Chris is doing such a good job there, and he's got plenty of help now, so I
Absolutely.
may not even be wanted.
Nice. And then you have the Joy dog food podcast as well that you're running.
Right. We do the Fueled by Joy podcast. I have some help there as well. We got a team behind that, but we do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday episodes.
Okay. Wow. Cranking them out. That's awesome. Yeah. I saw you have you do a news update on Mondays, right?
We do a little short, 5 to 10 minute news desk on
Nice.
Mondays, and then Treat Dog Tuesday, which kind of concentrates on the competition aspect side of the dogs, and then Working Dog Wednesday, which it could be a myriad of things. And that's, of course, I got some co-hosts there. We're getting ready to add a new co-host, actually, which is good. We need all the help we can get.
That's awesome. And so working dogs meaning not just hunting, but protection and scent work and
yep,
Schutzhund and all that kind of stuff.
We're a dog food company, so we want to feed, but we got to thank for working dogs. Dogs with jobs really intrigue me, and dogs without jobs don't.
Oh yeah.
So that's probably not a good say that for a guy that works with a dog food company, but we like working dogs, and so anything that has a job, it's pretty interesting to us.
That's awesome. And you are the regional sales manager for Joy Dog Food. Is that's still your title?
I am. That is still my title so far. Anyway, we haven't changed it yet. I think we've ordered enough business cards. That's probably how it's going to stay until I run out.
I hear that. Yeah, I was because to me it seems like you do a lot more than just selling dog food. I mean, you are, because you're with the marketing and everything like that. I mean, podcasting is probably one of the best forms of marketing that I could think of, just because it gets people so engaged in kind of what you're doing. But what else do you do? What else kind of falls under that job title?
Well, the normal sales manager, regional sales manager, we set up distribution centers, and it can be anybody from a guy who wants to sell dog food out of his garage, but will buy a semi-load at a time, versus guys that are larger companies that will cover multiple states and deliver to dealers. And so my job is to work with those distributors, and then help those distributors sell dog food out to the dealers so it can get to the end customer. I don't do as much of that as I used to. My area used to be from Canada to Mexico, west of the
Mm.
Mississippi.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay. Wow.
I travel a lot, and now we've got me staying home more. I go to events. I cover events for Pro Sport Live on the Joy Facebook page, and we do hunts of our own on our YouTube channel. We done the super hunt last winter and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So I
I
do a
remember
lot.
that.
Not I do not do the sales stuff as much as I used to.
Okay, right on. That's awesome. And where do you live? What state do you live in?
I live in northern Missouri. I'm right on the
Okay.
Iowa-Missouri border. Yeah,
Awesome.
right 5 miles south of the Iowa line.
Is Missouri considered the South or is that Midwest?
We consider ourselves the South
Okay, I thought you might.
in attitude. Yeah, in attitude, but we consider ourselves the Midwest when it comes to things that we don't like about the South.
Oh, for sure. That's hilarious.
We could cherry pick. We're in the middle of the country. We could cherry pick what we are.
Right. I used to live I live in Oregon now, but I used to live in Louisiana. So after I graduated high school, I'm a musician, so I play guitar and jazz music. I don't really do much of that anymore, but I moved to New Orleans right after I graduated high school, hung out there for several years, and then I ended up moving to Baton Rouge. And I got into hunting when I was in Baton Rouge. And I actually met a lot of people down there, like deer hunters and stuff, who they would drive. Like I met a lot of people who had deer like leases up in Missouri. So it sounds like pretty good hunting if they're willing to do that. Cause I mean, it was pretty good hunting in Louisiana.
It is. Our entire county is ran by outfitters.
Really?
Huge swaths of
Okay.
property. Pretty much everything is leased and outfitted, which is
Interesting.
when that first started, late '90s, early 2000s. It made it pretty difficult on the houndsmen for a while, but now we've
Hmm.
got a really good working relationship with those outfitters,
Okay.
and they're they're coming around, and we do a lot of our hunting. Of course, I'm a houndsman as well. I coon hunt,
Oh yeah. We'll get into
five
that.
six five a week, and but we got a lot better relationship with them than we did when this first all started.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. As long as we're moving in an upward direction, that's always what I like to hear. It's amazing how like yeah, we're all hunting, we're all hunters at the end of the day. I still consider myself like a new hunter. I've been hound hunting for 5 years now and big game hunting like a couple of years more than that. But
Yeah.
it always blows my mind how much like how much clashing there is amongst hunters. Um and
It's not just houndsmen and deer hunters too. It's all hunters. It
oh,
is
oh yeah.
kind of a yeah.
Well,
It's a
and then
unique phenomenon.
Well, even with, and then so you go, okay, whitetail hunting is like a subsect of hunting, and then you have the bow hunters and the rifle hunters, and then you have the rifle hunters and the muzzle loaders, butting heads constantly. It's like, come on, guys, can't we just all get along here?
It even goes. I mean, it goes into the traditional bow hunter versus the guy that uses a compound. The crossbow hunters they're their own. They might as well get a different planet if you
Oh,
if you
for
hunt with
sure,
a
yeah,
crossbow.
everyone hates them.
It's wild. I don't.
That's funny. Okay, so you are a hardcore hound hunter, and from what I gather, you are heavily involved in the competition side of things.
Yes.
That might be a little understatement, right? I mean, it's your whole world. It seems like.
It is and has been probably for the last 20 years or so. Today's actually
Wow.
my 43rd birthday, and so
Oh,
I've been a
awesome.
member. I've been a member of PKC since 2001.
Wow.
So it's 22 years of being a member of the Professional Kennel Club and competing in those events.
Mm,
But before that we coon hunted in competition, but we were poor growing up, and like a lot of houndsmen now, and everything's changed so much. But we just dreamt of being in magazines, and these guys were, mythical creatures and stuff that you would
mm.
read about in the full and the Pro Hound and the American Cooner and all that stuff. And so yeah, I'm blessed to be where I'm at. I'm a lucky guy, but yeah, it has really took a lot of my life, pursuing.
Right on. So, okay. So first of all, happy birthday. It's
Thank you.
You gonna do anything? You got any exciting plans to celebrate?
Yeah, I was going to be on this podcast. I was like, wow,
Oh,
this is going to
nice.
be the greatest than ever. I get to be on Hound on the Run. This is great.
Awesome. um, okay, so yeah, you're involved. So you said like 20 years or so. When did you get into hound hunting? Like, did this come from a fam? Was this a family influence, or how did you? What's your origin story as a hound hunter?
A good portion of my childhood, I was raised, me and my brother, by our grandfather and grandmother. And he had hounds. We've had hounds ever since I could remember. I remember to this day my first hunt. I believe I was 3 or 4 years old, and the only thing I remember is riding around on my grandpa's back through the woods and me whining and him getting mad at me. And so I've been around him as long as I can remember. He did like to competition hunt, but
Hmm.
he did not pursue it at the level that we pursue it at. My brother's also a really accomplished houndsman on the competition side as well,
Okay.
and so we've done really well. And he's probably, I think he's ahead of me in career earnings right now. I'm
Hmm.
still trying to catch him, but he's got a 6 year head start on me, so I'm gonna give him a
Oh,
holler
okay.
one of these days.
Yeah, 6 years. I mean, that's a pretty good head start. I would think.
It, it is. That's what I told him too.
What kind of dogs did your grandpa run?
We've had a few other breeds, but it's always been tree and walkers
Okay.
as a mainstay.
Nice.
First dogs we've hunted behind were tree and walkers, and probably the last dog I'll hunt behind will be a tree and walker. And nothing against any of the other breeds; they've all got their place in their scheme of things, But tree and walkers do dominate this circuit. I mean, it's
Right.
it's no knock, just a fact, and that's what we were raised with, and that's probably what we'll keep hunting until something else better comes along.
Nice. Well, you're in good company. I am very infatuated with the walkers. I I have one like full on, treeing walker. Well, he's like a bobcat dog, so he's got the running walker in him too. And yeah, out here in Oregon for the bobcats, I mean, the walkers are what everyone is who's actually catching a lot of bobcats is using. I'm kind of a dumbass, and I have like a dog hoarding problem, and so I've ended up with a bunch of blue dogs. Um,
Yeah.
and I love them. I'm working with them. I don't have I wish I had a lot more time to invest in all this, but I'm as gung ho as it gets. And I managed to get I was last year I was raising three blue tick pups that came out of one of my females. It was an accidental litter, but I just hit the woods hard with them, and I managed to get them on a handful of bobcats, and I got good hopes for them. It is
Yep.
interesting. When I first got into this, to me, a hound was a hound. It was like you just get whatever color you like. But it
Right.
is really one of the most fascinating parts of this is like seeing how they are their own, like each one is their own little like channel. Everyone, they got their own characteristics. Um, like here with and I got a lot of questions for you about like the style of dogs and how you actually run them in these competitions, and the kind of
Mhm.
dogs you prefer. I remember being on it was a crowd cast that you did with Chris and the Houndsman XP guys, and you were talking about how like you think that you could take one of your competition bred dogs and put them in any other
Yeah.
context and they would excel. And I fully I do I'm with you on that. With a couple like I don't know if it's a full blanket rule. I think you do.
Nothing with things is a blanket rule. You know that just as well as I
Right,
do.
right. But
General, as
it's
a general.
hearing you talk about that stuff and like the style of dog you like I can definitely see those different characteristics in a lot of the bobcat dogs out here. When you're talking about like you want that dog to just like rock it off the starting line and go get way away from everybody else and go and find the critter. And
Yep.
I've found that my walker, Rue, he is more like that. Like he's gonna take off into the woods and he's gonna go looking for something. Whereas my female, she's half walker, half black and tan. she is more like, okay, I need to know. I got to find the track first, and then we're gonna work that. And same with my other blue tick. It's like they're like, we are, ride or die for the nose. Like the nose, the scent is above all else. Whereas like, that other style of dog is like I don't know. It's hard to articulate, but they're like going to go find something versus work a track.
A lot of it, and the Walker breed is so complicated as far as lines and I'm just talking Eastern Walkers because
Sure.
there's Walkers out west that have been bred for big game that have been. One thing I got some questions for you through this too because big game guys, and I know several of them, and they're great guys, great houndsmen. They've got good dogs, but they hoard their bloodlines. Something
100%.
terrible. See, the one thing that's made the Walker breed so successful throughout the years, I'm talking late 70s up until today, is because of stud dogs open to public stud, guys willing to interbreed bloodlines and
Yeah.
mix and match because we just want to win. We don't. I'll go win with somebody else's stuff, and just like I will with mine, I don't care.
Okay. Yeah.
If a great blue along and I can go get a $60,000 check with him one weekend, you betcha. We're
Right.
taking that. And the Walker breeders kind of did themselves. They've done themselves a few disservices over the years, trying to sell pups and maybe not breeding the best dogs.
Okay.
But once these hunters started paying really good money and the pay was in just the quality of the animal that you were turning loose and the time you put forth into it, these guys didn't care what they were breeding to. They
Gotcha.
would go to their most hated enemy to get
Sure.
something that would win.
Right.
And so
Okay.
I think that's where we've kind of succeeded. Some of the other breeds out east have not done that. The red bones, blue ticks, English, black and tans, all of them, they've been kind of, this is my line. This is what I'm going to hunt. This is what I'm going to do. I don't want to mix it out too much. If I make an outcross, I'm just going to keep a female to breed back to my stuff. And that's real common. And I think we kind of got a leg up on them early.
Gotcha. Interesting. Huh. So, do you think, because when you're saying like, the red bones, they're a little more like, they're they're sticking to that breed and those lines more. Do you think that, is there any factor of like, it's just the color of them? Like they don't, like they're sticking to a physical appearance standard in addition to performance.
Yeah. Their breed standards are really important to some of those. They're coming out of it. I mean, it comes and goes. You'll get some guys that aren't worried about the breed standard, but then they're kind of pushed away by the rest of the community when they do get a really good dog. I look at the success of Big Country on the blue tick side and how some of these guys just ran this dog down. Here's a dog that met every breed standard and had all the talent in the world. Probably to this day, one of the most talented coon hounds I've ever seen turned loose. And you would still hear a lot of negative feedback from some of the blue tick breeders because he was open to breeding Walker female.
Oh,
we took a really good female to Big Country, and we got some half-bred pups.
And those would be like,
a bit.
So Walker blue tick.
Yeah, they'd be
Cross.
half Walker, half blue tick.
Okay.
Some of the most successful dogs that are a majority of treeing Walker still have a shot of something else in them. You look at a dog like Halftime Ruby, she has a blue tick in her a ways back. That's the winning Walker female of all time, or winningest female of all time, period.
Really? So how long, like if you look at that, I've never seen that dog, and I'm completely ignorant about all of the breeding, all the lines you're talking about. Like I'm interested in it. I just haven't been exposed to it in a meaningful way, really. And it's just it's like a totally different world from what I'm doing out here. So like
it is. Yeah.
So that dog, so I know you have to have a register, so to participate in these hunts, you have to have an actual registered dog, right?
Yep. The registry is different. Pro Sport, which is a newer registry, I believe it's 2-3 years old now. They're having some fantastic events. I think you could probably put a poodle in that. I don't think they have any standards as far as registry. Your dog has to be registered with Pro Sport, but the lineage doesn't matter.
Interesting.
PKC has a crossbred program. You're just registered as a crossbred. No big deal. Your lineage is still there. Your papers are still good. Your DNA's done. All your handler earnings and dog earnings are right there on the papers. They're just crossbred. And UKC did the same thing about 4 or 5 years ago, I think,
Oh yeah.
to where you could they had a crossbreed section just like they do, Treeing Walker, Blue Tick, English,
Yeah.
etc. So you could mixed up dogs and all this, and even if you don't even know their lineage, you don't know what breed they are, you can still get these dogs single registered and compete.
Okay, I was going to ask you that because when I first got my female dog Cooley, I got her as a 9-week-old puppy. I bought her off from a lady on Craigslist, and I don't know anything about her background, but she can treat.
There's a lot of people that buy their first dog off Craigslist. You're not the first one.
Well, this was before. So this is before I even thought I was going to hunt with my dogs. So I got my first dog given to me, old, is actually a blue tick walker. And then I was like, oh, he needs a buddy. So I got him, we got Cooley off of Craigslist. This lady, I don't know what she was thinking, but she lived in Bend, Oregon, which is kind of a resort, not really, I don't know, like a mountain resort wannabe town. And she was living in this tiny little apartment, and she had the brilliant idea to get 2 hound puppies with no yard. And so she got an eviction notice like within a week. And that, I guess that's the backstory. But once I did start hunting with my dogs, I had this grand idea of like, oh my God, Cooley's so awesome. I'm gonna get her really solid on coons, and then I'm gonna go back east and I'm gonna run a competition circuit and I'm gonna win everything with her. But then I started looking into, I mean, this is total naive me talking. Then I started looking into the registration stuff, and I was like, because I'm like, well, I can't really. It didn't seem like there was a way to get a dog like her with an unknown background into the competition world. But you're saying that it is possible.
Not hard at all.
Wow.
Professional Kennel Club is the one that pays good money. Pro Sport pays good money, and UKC. Their smaller events usually are not for cash prizes, but they have some big cash prize events. The Tournament of Champions pays $50,000 and whatever. But yeah, she can be registered in all 3, Pro Sport and PKC probably being the easiest of the 2.
Sure. Okay.
The United Kennel Club probably has the biggest database of hound papers than anywhere else in the world, and they're pretty picky about how they do things, and for good reason.
Yeah.
They're a solid organization that want to have their papers right, and so single registering her is a little bit more of a process, but can still be done.
Interesting. Kind of too late for that now. She's like, she's old and fat, but
good thing.
She's still doing good. Yeah. Yeah, she's still learning the bobcat game. It's like I got her on so many coons when she was little. And it's just a totally different, it's a whole different sport. It feels like it's been so challenging, but a lot of fun, and makes for some great content. But what would you say is like what gets you most excited about the competition side of hound hunting? Like, what's your favorite aspect of it?
Starting a young dog and raising a puppy and getting it ready to compete is my favorite aspect of it.
Really? That's awesome.
I've won with other people's dogs. I've been in very high priced events with other people's dogs. I'm a hired handler sometimes. Jed Finley and Wade Graduates are my bosses. If they say, here's an entry, here's a dog, go hunt it, I go do it. But starting one that I held in my hand at a day old and then getting it out there to where it's competing and doing well is still the best aspect of it for me. It's not for everybody. Some people can't stand doing that.
Sure.
And that's okay too.
Yeah.
You need all kinds. But yeah, that's my favorite part. And it's so hard to do. I think that's why I like it so much. It's because it's super difficult.
Now, don't give away any of your secrets or anything, but like what does that process look like? How do you get a young hound started with the intention of hunting it in competitions?
And I'm not I'm not going to say I'm the best at it. There's guys that do it better than me. I just done a podcast on Joy with the Dunlaps, who are probably one of the best in the world at
Oh,
birth to competition.
cool.
But I have a process that I use, and it's generally the same. The first thing you have to do is not get attached to that dog.
Mm,
I take excellent care of my animals, probably better than I do myself. They have climate controlled environments. It's never too hot, too cold. They get the best care. But I can't get attached to them because you can't, if you're wanting to win the way that we want to win,
right,
you can't be locked on one dog.
right.
If that thing is ready to go in 18 months from birth at an entry fee that's $2,500 to $6,500, you've wasted 18 months and you got to start over.
Yeah.
And so the trick, knowing that dog can't compete, and you got to know it fast. When they're usually time they're 6 or 7 months old, I can look at a dog and be like, that dog isn't going to cut it.
Gotcha.
Probably going to be a good coon dog for somebody,
Right.
And it may win at a local level, or it may be this. And I've been wrong before. I've sold a couple pretty big winners, but you got to know right from the beginning if you're going to like this dog or not, so you don't waste a whole lot of time with it. And to do that, it starts at day one. You really start exposing the dog to everything.
Okay.
The day they're born and the day they get dried off, I'm picking them up, I'm holding them. My slam doors in my kennels purposely make a lot of noise when the female goes in and out. I want them dogs. I don't want them shy. Shyness is the
Yeah.
first thing that's going to make a dog hard to train. They start getting hauled in a vehicle the day they're weaned. We take them to the woods the minute they can get around and do anything. And it's just all exposure, and then letting their natural talent come out and letting just getting them out there to where you can see that talent come forth and their genetics, and then going from there. It really gets difficult when you got to get to the level where you have to put them in a crowd.
Oh, I bet.
That's where the hard work really starts.
Sure.
And so normally, if I ain't completely dead set that this is the one, that's when I sell them. And they're 12, 13, 14 months old, and they're treeing coons consistently by themselves. And then before I put them in the crowd, I'll either decide to start over or I'll decide to go through the really hard part.
Wait, so you're saying at that point, that's when you decide if you're going to sell them, or you decide you're selling them?
That's when I decide if I'm going to keep them or sell them.
I gotcha. Okay.
And normally if I keep one, I don't sell it down the road, but I very rarely keep one.
Really?
I've kept two.
Because you're just looking for that like total diamond, like the unicorn.
And we will patch in some dogs that we buy on occasion.
Sure.
And they'll fill a gap in between, puppies, litters that we're having and puppies that we're training. But I don't keep very many. I've kept one. He's actually laying right here next to me in the crate. He's 8 years old. Yesterday, his birthday's the day before mine.
Oh, nice.
He's pretty much retired now. I'm glad I kept him. He got burned out, and that's something you can't predict, is burnout.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because like a dog like that, like when he was in his prime, like how many nights a week would you have him in the woods, would you say?
5 to 7.
Okay, wow.
When we're getting ready for an event, we hunt at least, like right now I'm hunting about 5 nights a week.
Wow.
And I start a stopwatch the minute I turn the dog loose that I'm getting ready. And at that 2-hour mark, they go in the truck.
Okay.
As the event gets closer, at that 2-hour mark, they'll go in the truck. I'll take them home. I will go switch dogs for an hour or two, and then I'll come back and get that same dog again and cut them loose just to simulate a late round or something like that. But if you're getting one ready and you're doing it right, especially in the summertime, you actually have to hunt harder in the summer, which used to be our off season, to keep one right than you do in the winter.
Do you have what kind of terrain are you? Because with the competition, you're going all over the country, so you're going to be in tons of different. There's going to be a lot of variety in the where you're actually hunting. What's your home turf like?
We're real blessed here with a diversity of things that we can turn dogs loose into.
Oh, cool.
And so I can simulate where I think we're going to go. We also go a lot of times a week ahead of the event and hunt locally. just to get our dogs acclimated. But right here, it's mostly just rolling hills, huge crop field bottoms. We have a lot of crops on our hills too. Of course, we're in the corn belt. Um, this time of year is, unless you're hunting cattle pasture, which I prefer. It's not always
Hmm.
the best when you're trying to get a dog ready, but unless you're hunting pasture ground, it's thick, and
Yeah.
you're gonna be fighting a lot of brush and weeds and blackberry
Gotcha.
bushes and thorns and stuff like that. But we have a very good population of raccoons, and so
Nice.
I have to get a dog ready in areas that I have picked out here around the house that don't have as many raccoons if I'm
Okay.
going to somewhere where there's not a raccoon population or something like that. So we're
Hmm.
we're blessed with a variety of terrain. Our climate's pretty good. I venture to say this is probably one of the top 2 or 3 coon hunting areas in the world.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You have to go find places with thinner populations, make it more challenging,
We
right?
have we have to make those places. We have
Wow.
to harvest every single coon we can harvest just to keep their numbers down.
Oh, gotcha.
Our coon numbers are outrageous to the point that
Hmm.
we're gonna do something pretty serious and pretty drastic. They've decimated the turkey population, quail population, pheasants, all the ground nesting birds.
Crazy.
And we got so much food and so much cover and so much everything that they need that the only way we can get them out is to thin them out ourselves.
This is raccoon paradise. So,
It
but
is a
can't they can have like two couple litters a year, right?
I was just talking to my son about this last night. We hunted in an area that I really dog out hard, me and 4 or 5 other hunters.
Mm.
And it's a big block. And we make sure, and that's one of our spots where we're getting ready for an event. And that's one of our spots where a dog really has to hustle to get a coon struck and treed. And we will be in November, December, January and still shooting kitten coons.
Wow.
Because they've had late litters because we're
Okay.
constantly in there keeping the population in check.
Mm.
And, but still, we went in there last night. We treed 3 coon in 2 hours, and the dog looked good. Now she had to cover a lot of miles in between trees, which is what I was looking for. But you can't here where they have this habitat. You can't hurt a raccoon population enough
Gotcha.
to threaten them. Yeah.
What kind of so let's say you're only hunting in areas where they're just thick. What are some kind of like what would be the downsides of running a dog in terrain like that, which is a ton of raccoons? Like what kind of bad habits do you see them develop from that?
Laziness.
Okay.
They're not gonna fire out as hard and as
Mm.
quick because everything on the competition side aspect is speed and accuracy.
Okay.
We don't necessarily have to have the most style or flash or anything. They just got to be quick and they got to be accurate. Well, those dogs that are accustomed to, you know, moseying out there 300 or 400 yards to get a track struck, when they do that in a place where there's not a track for a half a mile or 3/4 of a mile or even a mile, they're going to struggle. They're going to stop that straight line hunting and they're going to start veering back and forth. Their speed's
Mm.
going to drop and they're not covering as much ground as the dog that are hustling and looking for that track that they can handle quickly. And so it's all a speed game. You turn a good coon dog is a good coon dog no matter where it's at.
Yeah.
If we take an actually really good one, it don't matter where you turn it loose, it's going to do the same thing. But those are so rare to the point that I don't think I've ever had one, and
Oh,
I've maybe only seen one.
wow.
you know,
Wow.
they're not machines. They have areas where they're better and times a year where they're better and locations where they're better, and
Gotcha.
usually a good handler will find those places, and that's where he takes them. But there's
Hmm.
certain instances where you're just gonna have to go where you got your entries for, and you
Right.
better get ready for it even if you don't have a dog.
Gotcha. See, with my dog Cooley, like I have very few places I can go coon hunting here. Like we have a lot of raccoons, but just like I'm in the Willamette Valley and it's all private land. There's really no public land that I can access. I've tried to get access on private land, but just hound hunting is very looked down upon here in Oregon. And so just no one wants to deal with us. You know what I mean? It's just, even if they are like friendly to deer hunters or whatever, they just don't want dogs on their property. I've had really bad luck getting permission. But the couple of places I do have, like they are just stacked with raccoons. And so that's where I was like got my young dogs started. And I found that when I transitioned them to the bobcat woods, it's almost like they just they didn't even know what to do, because they're like, okay, well, normally we're out here for about 5 minutes and we find one, and then we go and tree three more, like all within about 100 acres. It's like there's too many of them. And I've just found that, like, specifically with my dog Cooley, she's not driving forward enough to actually figure out those tough cat tracks. Because normally it's like, oh, I've worked about 20 minutes and I've produced a raccoon. Whereas, to me, it's always felt like a bobcat race is kind of like, it's like a string of coon races all linked together. You know what?
Yeah.
It's like it's an all day event usually, like tracking these things down. But yeah, that's interesting. Gotta thin them out, I guess.
Well, dogs are such a creatures of habit, and we do little things as we're bringing a dog up. I've got an 11-month-old. She'll be 11 months old in 3 or 4 days, and she's treated a few coons already. I really like the way she acts. I really like the dog. I'm not going to say she's a keeper, because I've said that before in the past. Got burnt, but I really do like her. And what we do with them is we're blessed with giant fields. I can drive a few miles from the house and get to a place where it's 900 yards, 1,000 yards to a tree line of any kind.
Oh,
There's nothing
sure.
else but cut.
Gotcha.
And so that's where we're snapping them when they're young.
Right. They
And
got to go run first.
them dogs have a certain time limit and a distance limit that they're born with, that you got to kind of take away from them as they get older. I don't care if it's a retriever or a pointing dog or whatever. There's something that ticks in their brain that says, I need to turn around and come back.
Right.
From the way I just turned loose. And so we try to extend that as much as possible. And it's harder to do as a solo dog. It's a little easier to do in a pack. If you got one big hunting pack leader, you can kind of condition them dogs to range out hard and go, because, a pack animal is a pack animal. But there's certain things, certain tricks. But yeah, we like to really extend the range on them. We get some complaints about, your dog shouldn't have to go that far to tree a coon. No, he doesn't in North Missouri. He doesn't have to go that far. But
yeah,
when I'm in Texas, or I'm in Kentucky in the hills, or I'm in West Virginia, or I'm in Arkansas or the Mark Twain National Forest, they're going to have to get out there and stretch their legs a little bit. So we just want to get them used to it.
So are you because I'm assuming you run like collars that can stimulate, right?
We run e-collars, everything, except we're not allowed to in an event.
Okay, gotcha. So let's say, I'm just thinking of the actual training process of that. Are you like correcting them if they turn around and come back to you when they're like too soon? Because that seems tricky to train them to go further.
It is, because you also want some recall.
Of course,
I also want to be able to yell and let it know. So we do a lot of different things. With Angel right now, she's going, with dogs, and she's an independent dog too. Last night, her and the other female that we're trying out, getting ready to maybe buy, I don't know yet. We're just a couple days into it. But they were over 1.5 miles apart at one point last night.
Okay.
And so she's got plenty of range if she's got just a little bit of confidence booster out there with her. By herself, she's 800, 900 yards. If she's not getting struck, she's really thinking about coming back my way. And she's not to the point where I got to do anything physically to correct her. But what I will do is I will take that young dog, and the minute she comes back to me, she goes straight back to the house and back in the kennel.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And then if that doesn't work, we'll put another dog in the box that I know will leave hard and stay gone. And we'll turn the pup loose, and the pup comes back. We'll tie her right where she came. We will walk that dog right next to her, and we will unsnap it, and we will let her watch it leave, and she'll get frustrated eventually. And that usually fixes the problem. Coming back to your handler in a cast is a big no-no. That's going to draw you minus point. And so while I'm walking in the woods, if I'm not by the truck and they come moseying up, then they will get a little bit of correction there. But it's usually snap them up, shake their collar a little bit, tell them no, and tell them
Gotcha.
to get out of there. And they
Gotcha.
usually pick it up pretty good.
Right. Right. One other thing that's
We
go ahead.
So we don't like to shock them. I don't like to personally shock them or
Sure.
use any kind of anything with the collar because we can't do it in an event.
Okay. Yeah,
And
makes
these dogs
sense.
are smart. That them prongs ain't in their neck, they're gonna do what they want.
Sure.
If they're
Yeah. Oh,
if they're
100%. They're so smart. And I find my hounds to be very manipulative. Like they will,
it's
they'll figure out a way to get what they want a lot of times.
and
Do you have to do a lot of trash breaking with your dogs?
we don't with anything fast. No,
Okay.
we don't worry about hogs. We
Hmm.
don't worry about whitetails because they're gonna grow out of that.
Okay.
And if they never grow out of it, it's not a big problem. All that does is carry them into the woods until they run into a hot coon track that they absolutely can't help the tree. And so
All
we just don't
right.
do
All
nothing.
right. Interesting.
Possums, armadillos. I'm having one of my females has a terrible problem with skunks, and
Uh
so
oh.
we're working
That
on
sucks.
that. We do some extinction breaking
Hmm.
that where you light them up pretty good, and yes, it is uncomfortable for the dog, but if you do it the right way, you only have to do it once or twice, and then it's a done deal.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I found that the higher the correction level, hopefully, the fewer times you need to do it. I've I had to I learned that early on when I realized, okay, I'm not actually turning it up enough, and I'm basically just nagging the dogs, and it's not
Yeah.
they want to be running that coyote way more, and it's just like they don't care about a little zap. They want to catch that coyote. So
Little tickle ain't gonna do it very
yeah,
often, and
yeah,
not the way.
exactly. They need to feel like their life is ending for a moment, I think.
I mean, and I've done it with little dogs that are just doing something in the yard that's not appropriate, something they don't need to be doing, and just one quick extinction session, and you'll never have to worry about it again if
Yeah,
that year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, maybe not ever. And so that's the preferred method. It saves you from getting a dog that is not enjoyable to hunt, let alone can't win with.
sure. Do you have any problems with? Do you have to worry about snakes and stuff?
We have zero snakes where I live that are
That's good.
poisonous.
What about
Yep.
when you go down to Texas? Are you worried that your
We
dogs are
were
going to get bit by a rattlesnake or whatever?
It's very common
Oh, it
to
is.
get. We've had some dogs get snake bit.
Oh
Rainy,
yeah.
for instance, got snake in January in Texas. We had one warm night.
Wow.
She come home with a water moccasin bite, but
Ooh.
the dogs take it really well. It's usually
Really?
not very hurtful at all. They'll swell up. They'll get some antibiotic, and they'll
Okay.
be good to go in about 2 or 3 days. They
Oh,
they
that's
take
good
it
to
way
hear.
better than we would. Yep.
Interesting. Hmm. Now, so you are going for that unicorn dog. What happens
hmm
if you have that like high performer that it's just blowing your mind in every way, but it has like you, because I heard you say, well, if I like her. What if you don't like that dog? Are you still gonna keep it? Like what? Like it takes a
Um,
dump in your box, or like it has
yeah.
it pees on your boot every time. Like those stupid little annoying things that the dogs just do. How do you deal with that?
I won't keep them unless I don't like them
Really?
because if I don't
Okay.
like them, they're not get the chance that they deserve.
Right. I
I
see.
can think of a lot of huge, big time quality dogs that I absolutely do not like. Probate, for instance, and George, the guy that handles her, is one of my good friends, and I don't like the dog. If I
Mm,
owned the dog, she never would have won what she won. And
gotcha.
so, if I have a dog, and you can tell if you're not going to like them when they're real young, you have to have a little bit of affection and enjoyment for them just to even be able to take them out there. Because I mean, I'm with my dogs daily,
Yeah.
uh, all day, every day, it seems like. And so, yeah, they got to have a personality that suits the handler. And you can't always mold that into one. Sometimes
Right.
you can, but not all the time. And if you can't mold it into what you want to be around and be enjoyable with, there's no sense of you keeping it because you're not going to give that. It's not fair to the dog. You're not going to give that dog the proper chance that it needs.
Gotcha. And I feel like a lot of that is subconscious. Like, if you, it's like, okay, people at work, like at work, there's people who it's like, okay, yeah, we're acquaintances, but I don't really like them. So I subconsciously, like if I see them, they're going to the bathroom, I'm going to subconsciously go the opposite direction. So like, I feel like that is kind of a nice thing for you to do. If you don't like that dog, just move them to somewhere else because you're going to subconsciously give them less food than everyone else. Like, that kind of stuff. Yeah. The psychological aspect of it is very real, I think.
That avoidance of people hit because I was just doing some grocery shopping a couple of weeks ago, and I seen a guy I know that's, of course, there's only 2,700 people I think in my entire county, so you know everybody.
Yeah.
But, I see him at the grocery store, and I immediately walked around the aisle until he checked out because I knew if he seen me, he was going to come over and talk. And I'm just like,
For
"Oh,
sure.
he's a good guy."
Yeah.
Don't like.
I mean, I do that with a certain neighbor on our block. Like if I see them walk into the mailbox, I'm going to hang out in my house for a couple more minutes.
You're going to have all your neighbors listening to this podcast and wondering if it's them or not.
Yeah, right. I think only one of them does. So, and he's cool. He likes the dogs. Okay, so on your podcast, you were saying you talk to not just hound hunters, but like other people in different working dog sports. So my question is, if you were not involved in competition coon hunting, what other dog sport would you be doing?
I would be upland hunting with English setters.
Really?
Yes, I went through a spell where I had both. For about 10 years, I had coon hounds and setters.
Okay.
And I love hunting. Always
Really?
have. I didn't start it till later in life. I was 17, I think, the first time I went. And I bought a dog at 18 and a puppy and raised it, trained it. And luckily for me, despite me not knowing exactly what was going on or what to do with a bird dog, he made a good serviceable gun dog.
Okay.
And I traveled Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, Western Kansas, and chased upland game just like I do coon hounds now too, and tried to do both. But eventually, as the kids got older and work got busier, I had to pick one or the other, and so I
Yeah.
stuck with the hounds. But it would definitely be English setters and coveys of quail in front of them every chance I got. Still love it.
Right on. Are those I don't know much about bird dogs, but I feel like there's a certain type of setter that is really known for being good on grouse?
Yeah, English setters are known.
English
Llewellyns,
setters.
all the
Okay.
setters are.
Okay.
But
I know they're popular
like-
out here in Oregon because we have a lot of grouse up in the mountains. And I've heard that the setters are kind of what you want to use for that.
Yeah, and I'm not, because I mean I've hunted huns and sharpies and
Okay.
sage grouse with my setters, but of course they spent most of their time with Midwestern game, pheasant, quail.
Gotcha.
But I would say it's probably a lot like the coon hunters. There's
Mhm.
probably a lot of good English pointers out there that would serve them
Sure.
just as good, but they've had setters that have succeeded in that area for so long that that's what they're going to stick with. And I may be wrong there. I may be completely talking out my ass too. But that's just a guess. That's my
Sure.
summation.
So, okay, aside from hunting with dogs, what dog sport would you do? Because there's a lot. I mean, it always blows my mind how many freaking different dog sports there are in the world, like dock jumping, truffle sniffing, or whatever, sock eating. I don't know.
The herding trials.
Oh, yeah.
Are really cool. Yeah, I mean those are so smart. Those dogs are so smart.
Oh, man.
And I've had healers and my brother's a big cowboy. He's got
cool.
a big arena and rope, and they raise cutting horses and roping horses, and he's always got collies and
Okay.
he's got cattle as well.
That's cool.
They're amazing animals. They're so smart, and that would be probably if it wasn't chasing some kind of game, it would be one of those.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've watched a lot of videos of those herding trials, and man, those dogs are just so sharp. Like, I have heard of people breeding like border collies into their bobcat dogs.
Yeah.
Just
Well, if you
just to
wanna-
get that intelligence.
Yep.
Actually, my mentor, my mentor who I've been learning, the Bobcat game from, his truck dog is I think she's a border collie. I don't know, some kind of dog like that. And she makes every Bobcat race with his pack. Like, yeah, and she's started tracks and she's located Bobcats in trees like on her own. It's pretty incredible. It's a very adaptable dog.
They figure out what you want, and they got a good bond with you. That's one of the breeds that really need to be bonded with their owner. If they're not going to have a 24/7 job.
Right.
If they have a 24/7 job, they can get by. But if you're not working them nonstop, then they really got to be attached to you at the hip.
They get kind of like nervy and kind of. I know they seem like they're more prone to anxiety and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. Have you ever hunted? So, like, as far as I know, there's really no competition coon hunting that happens out here in Oregon anyway. There's one club that was doing it several years ago, but they haven't had any night hunts for a long time.
Yep.
Have you ever come out this way for any of that?
I've hunted. I've not done any competition hunting. I did hunt the Milk River Valley with coon hounds one time.
Where's that?
It was fantastic. It was up in northern Montana, up along the highline.
Okay.
Yeah,
Huh.
fantastic coon population and good hunting as well. That's where
Right
I
on.
went to go. I used to go bird hunting out there every year.
Okay.
But no, far as west as I've turned a coon dog loose is probably central Kansas or western Oklahoma. But we just don't. I know there's good coon hunting in places. We got one guy that comes to a lot of big events from Idaho.
Okay.
Yeah, and he has black and tan dogs. Greg Covers is his name, and he said his coon population ain't the best, but
Sure.
he's got good coon dogs. He comes out here and he competes at high end events, and you'll see him around every now and then. It's a long drive for him, but you'll see him.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I mean, you got to be really dedicated to it. Like, you have to really want to do it if you're in Idaho, because I mean, you're looking at some long drives to get to where the action is.
And the fact that he's snowed out a couple months a year, I think helps him try to get over here where the weather ain't so bad.
Right. I know a guy, I think his name's Ronnie Borman. Does that sound familiar? He has black and tans. He's up in Canada. And
oh yeah,
I went to a couple of the night hunts we had down here. It was, I guess, 5 years ago, right when I was getting into stuff. And yeah, he was driving down here from, I think, Alberta. Like, he was coming from a long ways to do it. And he was telling me that, he pretty much has to, within like almost like a 500-mile radius, if not more, he's going to every single one of them just because there's not many events to get the titles and everything.
Yeah, no, I mean, it takes at least 5 wins to get a title in UKC. PKC is going to take similar if they're smaller events, and sometimes even more. Pro Sport's not. I think the farthest west that Pro Sport goes is right here at my house.
Oh wow, okay.
That's as far west as they've gone yet. So yeah, I give a lot of credit to those guys that are out in the middle of nowhere and still want to compete and don't have the events that I'm blessed with here. Those guys are hardcore. They're probably more hardcore than I am.
Right. So I know, like, we have like hound trials, like field trials and stuff out here. I always wish there was something else like the competitive kind of thing for people who don't want to run raccoons. Does anything like that even exist? Like, there's no, you can't competition bobcat hunt. You can't competition lion hunt. Like, though, it just seems like it's totally, you don't have the numbers. And like, has anyone ever tried doing anything like that you know of?
I want to.
Yeah.
We're actually working on something. But
Really?
to simulate a bear race or a lion race or a bobcat race is almost impossible.
Yeah, it is.
We can actually go hunt and tree our game. It's not a simulation.
Yeah.
But to do it with the other species with the big game stuff, it's got to be a simulation of some sort. So you're looking at drag races. They have some field trials up north in Wisconsin where they'll just run a long drag and first dog cross the line wins and stuff like that. So they'll do some things, but it's not at the level. And I think and that's such a detriment to you guys out west because there's so many talented hounds
Right.
and so many talented dogs, and there's an extra layer there that we get that you guys don't get, and so I'm hoping somebody does it if we don't do something, But I think there's some options,
Hmm.
but none of them I've found are perfect and are gonna actually dictate what the best. You look at guys that got a good dry ground lion dog versus a guy that runs a 6 dog pack in the snow.
Yeah.
There's such difference there,
Oh man.
and then
Yeah.
bobcats and bears are so different, and
Yep.
mountain lions and bears and everything's, so it would be hard to do, but we're gonna try to figure something out.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'd be definitely be interested in that. I've had some ideas, like I get some crazy ideas sometimes, and I had thought of this idea where basically it would be like almost like a manhunt, where
Yeah.
you have instead of just using like the field trials out here, they use a 4-wheeler to go and run the scent drag. I thought it'd be kind of awesome if you had one, so you have like a team. So you have one guy, you have your runner, and he's got some kind of a scent on him, maybe even not like animal scent, like vanilla or something. And then you get that dog trained on that scent, and then the runner has like a time limit where they have to go and get as far away as they can, and then you have your handler and the dog go and hunt that dude down. I feel like that could be a cool competition.
I think they do a little bit of something like that. Tracking competitions on the protection side,
Oh, okay.
where they do have a little bit of a I may be wrong there. I may be speaking out my butt again. So I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think they do. But yeah, I mean, it's with the big game guys, it's so complicated to try to get something competitive that they can do that will do them justice to the actual hunt.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so hard to do. But there's got to be a way. If we can get allegedly a man to the moon,
Right.
surely we can figure out how to do a bobcat dog competition of some sort.
Right. Definitely. Well, we're about to hit an hour here. I got to let you get on with your birthday celebrations. I just realized I didn't ask you any dog food questions. I actually had a list of questions, so maybe I'll have you back on if you're willing and pick your brain about dog food.
We're going to get in touch with you because I want you to sit down with us on the Joy podcast as well sometime.
Okay, sure. I would love to. Yeah, so High Standard is and Joy. Joy seems non-existent out here. High Standard, they sell at Sportsman's Warehouse.
Yep.
And I was buying it from there. It's been my favorite. I'm not just saying this because you're sitting right here. It has been my absolute favorite dog food. My dogs have done better on that stuff, the 24/20 blend, than anything. But it just became, like, especially once the pandemic hit, it became so hard to get. And even now, like, I don't know what, it might just be my local store that has issues, but I just had to go to something else. And I hate saying that, but I hate switching because it seems like it's not a good idea to be switching your dogs on different feed constantly, right?
I switch between formulas quite a bit yearly. I run the 24/20 the majority of the year. And for the folks that don't know, High Standard and Joy, that's the same dog food.
Right.
High Standard's out west, Joy is out east for the most part.
Oh, okay.
But I run the 24/20 on most of my dogs year round. My young dogs get the 30/20. My higher metabolism, older females will get maintenance through the summer, because you don't want any extra weight on them dogs when we're hunting them in the summer.
I bet.
But as far as the availability, we're working on it. I mean, we're a small company. We've got a big footprint, but we don't have a big company. We're still
Gotcha.
family owned. We have a total of 7 employees or 10 employees, something like that. It ain't very much. Our company birthday party catered by Subway. And
wow, I didn't realize it was such a tight little team. That's cool. I feel like that probably lets you guys, because I mean, you seem like big advocates for anything hunting dog related, whereas I feel like the bigger companies probably have a harder time doing that just because of all the public image stuff. But
We
it
can
seems
take
like you guys can just drill in on that audience.
we can take chances because if we just fed hunting dogs, if we fed a tenth of the hunting dogs in the United States, we would be selling 10 times more dog food than we are.
Mm.
And so we can target an audience, and it's not just because we're doing it for a marketing aspect or something like that. The owner of Joy Dog Food, Wade Grashwitz, owns part of these dogs that I have in my kennels. He loves to
Oh,
do them.
wow. That's awesome.
He loves he loves working dogs. And when I went to work for him in 2021, uh, it was with that in mind that this is a company that's going to help the houndsman, because that's really all I've ever wanted to do is promote the sport
Yeah.
and not necessarily anything else. But I found a company that had a great product that I love, as well as a great idea set that I like too. And so we're blessed to do that. We don't want to get too big, but we still want to sell dog food, of course. But yeah,
Sure.
we're lucky. We're lucky to be in the position that we're in, and we've had a really good run so far.
Cheers to that. That's awesome. So I usually do my little intro after the fact, before I put this out there. So we know about the podcast. We know about Joy Dog Food. Is there anything else you want to promote or mention?
Nope, just
All
follow
right.
all Joy's social media, the Joy YouTube channel, the Facebook page. If anybody's got any questions for me, I'm Josh at joydogfood.com if they want to send me an email. But look us up. All the social media stuff is a great tool for a small company like us, and
Yeah.
check out the podcast. And we also appreciate all these content providers like you, Nicholas. You guys are doing such a fantastic job, and I love being able to sit down and talk Western big game stuff, because it's not something I get exposed to as often as I like. And I think
Sure.
it's just such a cool. And of course, you're telling me you're a jazz musician that grew up in Oregon and spent time in New Orleans. And now, when you get on my podcast, you dive deep into that,
Okay.
because it's the people that make the fun out of this. So I think that's going to be cool.
Awesome. Yeah. Appreciate it. Cool. Well, yeah. Thanks again for coming on, and yeah, look forward to chatting with you soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Nicholas.